This is a review of Paper Moon Restaurant, which is in Georgetown. I make a habit of always looking at the reviews that restaurants have gotten on Yelp before trying out anything new. And this was the exception to that habit. My aunt and mom were in town, and we had been walking all day long throughout Georgetown, been showing them the scenery, showing them the city, and we were very, very tired, and we decided that we would sit down for a nice bite to eat, and I threw inhibition to the wind, and I said, all right, let's try Paper Moon. This was a very bad decision to make. We waited 15 minutes to get a table outside because it was a beautiful night and the wind was dancing around the tables. It was just perfect, and I felt that it would have been the perfect experience for my mom and aunt to have. Finally, we get seated, and our waiter comes over, and he doesn't introduce himself. He just passes out the menus, and then he hovers silently around us for probably like 3 minutes as we're looking at the menus. And so, of course, I'm looking at the menu, and then I'm looking up at him, expecting him to maybe ask us a question or, see if we needed anything or something like that. So I'm looking up the menu, and I look up at it, and I'm like, oh. And he's still there. Okay, that's weird. So I start nudging my mom. I'm like, pick something, let's get an appetizer so he'll leave us alone. And as soon as we're ready to order the appetizer, he leaves. He just leaves. I'm like, what just happened? And he comes back 10 minutes later. He's like, all right, you guys ready to order? And so, of course, we are. And we ordered the bruschetta for the table to start. My mom ordered the cannelloni. I ordered the penne with the pesto and scallops. And my aunt got the salmon. 15 minutes after we order, our waiter comes back to make sure that he had gotten our order. You mean to tell me you haven't put it in yet? And mind you, since then, there's couples that have been seated around us. They ordered 15 minutes after we did and got their food 10 minutes before we did. And I looked at my mom's and my aunt's like famished little faces, and they both look just so hungry, and I feel bad for them. So I asked him to bring us a little bit of bread for the table, since he hadn't brought out the bruschetta yet. A little bit of bread for the table with some oil, maybe some salt, maybe some pepper, maybe a little bit of sprinkled cheese, just to kind of hold them over until the food gets there. And this is his reaction. He goes, oh, but you know that the bruschetta that you ordered is bread. And in my head, this is the culmination. Minutes later, the food comes. And so it's the bruschetta comes first, and then 3 minutes later, it's the cannelloni and the salmon and my penne. So I start eating my penne, and it's okay. It's nothing to write home about, but it's palatable. I start eating it, and I look over at my mom, and I do this because she gives me nonverbal cues every time she's liking or disliking something, and usually she's disliking it when it's food that she's not making. That's an Albanian mom for you. So she tries it, and she just makes this heartfelt, disgusted look with her face, and it was just so poignant to me that she was having such a hard time eating it that I offered her my food and I took hers. And she was absolutely right to make that face. This cannelloni was about this big. There were 2 pieces with a little bit of sauce and a little bit of cheese sprinkled over it. And I tried it, and it was completely cold in the middle. Completely cold. They had taken it out of the freezer, put it in the microwave, microwaved it for obviously not a long enough time, brought it out, and we were eating cold cannelloni. So the whole time, for 20 minutes, not kidding you, 20 minutes, trying to flag down the waiter. I see him moving around. I'm just like, trying to make eye contact. And this is when you know when somebody's avoiding you, because you're here, and then he's just here and all over here, and maybe sometimes here, and then here, and then here. And then he hovers around you for like 2 seconds, and he's like, I'm looking, but no, I'm not. And then he keeps going. So this was for 20 minutes, just like trying to track him down. And finally, he comes over, and I tell him, I said, I've been trying to track you down for 20 minutes. This cannelloni is completely cold. It's not cooked. He doesn't offer to have it warmed up for us. He doesn't offer to bring us something else, but he does offer dessert. At that point, I'm completely beside myself. And so we obviously turned down dessert, and we get the bill, and we paid $150 with tip for that meal. And it was by far the worst $150 that I have ever spent at a restaurant in DC the worst service that I've ever gotten at a restaurant in DC. Terrible pricing for what they're offering. This place pays per location. There are a lot of tourists that go through that area, and unfortunately, they get roped in and they end up spending a ridiculous amount of money for very, very, very bad food. Very disappointing experience. I would give this place 1 star at best. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm always willing and able to answer what I do know, and look forward to my next review.